What's up, everybody? Over the past few weeks, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding cloud gaming, at least in the Xbox sphere. With Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, a game that runs almost entirely on the cloud, having such a disastrous launch, people are discussing whether or not this whole cloud gaming thing that Microsoft continues to push is a good idea, if it has any efficacy, and if it's ever going to get to a point where it can be a viable way to game. It's a hard thing for consumers like us to wrap our heads around, right? People like us who are super invested in the gaming sphere aren't really often interested in cloud gaming because we have the newest consoles and we're always sitting next to them and we can just play our games natively. So obviously we're going to look at cloud gaming and say, well, that's stupid. I can just play the games on my Xbox. And that's exactly what I thought about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I thought, why can't I just download this stupid game instead of having to stream it and deal with whatever problems arise from that? But Microsoft views cloud streaming in a very different way, right? They view cloud gaming as a way to access an untapped market of consumers, right? People who don't want to drop $500 on a console or who aren't really interested enough in this space to go out and invest in something like a Series X or heck, maybe even a Nintendo Switch, which is cheaper, but it's still pretty darn expensive. So I thought I'd have a little experiment that I'd run this week. As you can tell, I'm not in my normal setup. I'm at home rather than at college because it's Thanksgiving break. And I didn't bring home my Xbox because it's super big and that would have been such a pain in the butt. So I thought, why not for this week, to get my gaming fix, try to game with cloud gaming on Xbox, because you can access it on really any device. All I have to do is look up cloud gaming Xbox on my Mac, and all of a sudden I can pull up basically any game on the Game Pass library. So I thought, why not sample a few titles and play some that I, often play on my normal console and see if cloud gaming is even close to being a viable way to game in 2024. Also, I'm holding the microphone, so audio might be weird. I don't know. So let's start with the game that kind of, I wouldn't say sparked this controversy, but really got a lot of people thinking about it. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This game was a mess upon launch. So much so that I recorded a whole rant about it. I spent like a good 20 minutes just angrily ranting to my phone camera about how much of a mess it was on launch. And I was gonna post it, but it was kind of negative. I didn't want that energy. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be on this channel. But if you're interested, here's a little sampling of that rant.
But regardless of what games are coming out, the energy around Microsoft is just so negative to me. All of the controversy that they've been involved in over this past year, from the Avowed situation, giving a release date for the game, then pulling it away and then delaying it to February, shutting down multiple studios, raising the price of Game Pass, and not really being upfront about it at all. But none of that really affected the games and the output, right? Avowed got moved to February, right? But there were still a lot of games coming out this fall, and those other controversies didn't affect the product ultimately. But we're getting to a point where Microsoft's incompetency and insistence on shooting themselves in the foot is actively hurting the product they're releasing. The reason that Microsoft Flight Simulator had a absolute mess of a launch is not your fault, it's not my fault, it's not Team Asobo's fault, it's Microsoft's fault. Point blank and period. They have mishandled this like they've mishandled countless other things year after year, and I'm just getting sick of it. It's getting to a point where I just cannot take it anymore. I am just fed up with all of this crap. At least when Sony and Nintendo do they still release playable and good games. Microsoft is doing all this BS and getting embroiled in all this random stupid controversy, and they're also failing to release their games in a playable state and screwing up day one launches, which again is a key selling point for the only part of their company video game wise that is going right now, Game Pass. That's the only thing that is not a total failure for Microsoft right now, and one of their biggest selling points for it has been an absolute flop with one of their biggest releases this year.
As you can see, I was not over the moon about cloud streaming in general, and especially applying it to such a huge release for Microsoft, right? Flight Simulator 2024 was one of their biggest releases of this year, and I know Flight Simulator 2020 also used cloud streaming for parts of its game, but it wasn't as integral to the experience as Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and you never had as many problems on the 2020 client as you do on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And remember, Microsoft delayed Avowed into 2025, and their reasoning for that was not that the game needed more time, but that our backlogs needed a little bit of easing. So they moved it to February for us because there were just too many games coming out on Xbox this fall. And one of the biggest games, at least in my eyes, was an absolute mess upon launch. It seems like it's getting better now. I had more success getting in and having a good experience with it as the days went on, but it's still not great, and there still are moments where it looks like an absolute buggy mess. They can't really connect and give you the best experience. And that's disappointing for a tentpole release for Microsoft. This was a huge game for them. I was super hyped for it. I know a lot of people were hyped for it, and it had a really flat landing. I hope in a month I'm singing a different tune and they've figured all the issues out and it's a really great experience, but it didn't release in late December, right? If all the issues get fixed by then. It released in mid-November and it was not ready at that point. Whether it be the fault of the servers, of Microsoft, of Team Asobo, I don't know. I don't want to cast blame. I'm just saying it was not a great launch for Microsoft in that regard. But I will say, when it works really well, right? It's a lot better than the cloud streaming we're about to talk about that's fully streamed from the cloud on a computer, so to speak, right? There is some client that is downloaded on the console. I think it's about 30 gigabytes that downloads onto your Xbox. And again, a lot of the times it's buggy and it's not great, but some of the times it works really well. And when it does, it looks stunning. Like, it's unbelievable that it's mostly streamed from the cloud when it works, because it really does look really good. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of little details that are made into the world map. The sky and the sun effects are so beautiful. The planes are really detailed, right? When this game pops, it pops. But more often than not, at least right now, it doesn't really pop. I also will say it's pretty cool that you only have to download like 30 gigabytes to play the game. Like, that's pretty mind-blowing considering how much content there is in the game. We know why most of it is streamed, but that's still pretty cool. Again, I would prefer Microsoft not use this strategy for a lot of games. Microsoft Flight Simulator is an exception because there's just so much that goes into that game. It would be like, nanobytes or whatever, petabytes, I don't know what the term is, of data if you had to download all of it. But I also wouldn't support them doing anything like this for any other series because it clearly is not ready yet. The technology is not there. But again, that is a very different experience. And that experience is made with streaming in mind. Whereas the games you stream on your computer through Xbox Cloud Gaming are not made with cloud gaming in mind. It's a little feature that Microsoft tied to the end of Game Pass to make it even marginally more interesting to someone who's thinking about picking up the service. But any game you play on here, the developers were not thinking even for a second about how this game would run on Microsoft Cloud Gaming. It's not important to them, obviously, it shouldn't be. So how do those games run? We know the ups and the downs of Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is entirely dependent on streaming, and everyone knows that. But what about the games running on your client, on your computer? Do they run well at all? Is it playable? Would it be worth it to pick up Game Pass just to stream games on the cloud? Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but there are some games that run pretty well. The games that I found run the best, for some reason, are sports simulators. Madden, MLB The Show, games like that, I found run pretty well. I like to play Madden every week and simulate the Eagles game and play as the Eagles and try to beat their opponent. I know, really cool stuff. And when I tried to do that on Xbox Cloud Gaming, I thought it ran really well. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't a smooth frame rate. The graphics obviously aren't the sharpest, But for what it is, I thought it was pretty impressive. Same with MLB The Show. Again, not the sharpest, not the smoothest, but a playable experience for sure. It kind of reminds me of like a not great Switch port. I don't know if any of you have played MLB The Show on the Switch. I have. It's not a good port, but it's playable, right? It's very choppy. The graphics are not good, but you can play it. And I would say Xbox Cloud Gaming is about equivalent to that. Obviously, the graphics are a little more fuzzy than they are just plain not as high definition, if that makes sense. And the frame rate is more variable and can get really bad because it's totally dependent on your Wi-Fi. Whereas MLB The Show on the Switch, it'll like stutter when you swing the bat on offense or when you throw a pitch, but you kind of know when that's coming. It's not as variable as the cloud gaming experience, obviously. But again, the cloud gaming experience for these sports sims is very playable. Maybe if you're coming from the Series X and trying out cloud streaming, you won't think it's playable, but like for me, who's played his fair share of bad Switch ports, like I think it's pretty good. Like I was surprised that it didn't run that terribly. I don't know. I was expecting it to really crap the bed, but I didn't think it did too bad. That said, obviously your mileage may vary. If your internet isn't as good, might not be that playable. If your internet is really good, you might think it's super playable. You might have a great experience, but it is really different for each user. And it might even just be different on each day, right? It's like the internet and connecting to the Microsoft like database wherever is very inconsistent, and you'll get inconsistent results. Not every game was playable, though, I will say. I tried the newest Microsoft game on the cloud streaming service, that being Stalker 2, and this one wasn't as good. I wouldn't consider this a playable state. Again, I'm showing some gameplay of it. This is directly from the cloud streaming service, and I watched it over to check, and this is the experience I had. So in parts where it's really choppy, that's not my screen recording software going rogue. That's what I experienced playing the game. And you can tell in Stalker 2, there are a lot of moments where this thing just chugs and chugs. And again, I have good internet connection here. I wouldn't consider it incredible, but I would consider it good, right? Like if I play an online game on my normal Xbox, it runs very well. So I think this is obviously more a case of the cloud streaming technology not quite being there. Not only does Stalker 2 chug, it also doesn't look very good. I don't know how obvious it is in the footage I'm showing, but it is very grainy. It's got that weird like film, if you know what I'm talking about, that cloud gaming fuzz, you know, where it's kind of like loading in information as you go. So you have like this canvas of detail and it's kind of filling in parts of it. If you really focus on a certain part of the screen, you'll notice little pixels flickering and kind of building in more information as you go. I feel like someone who maybe doesn't play a lot of games wouldn't notice that, but you and I, we probably would. I definitely noticed it. I noticed it in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. It's not like a deal breaker, but it is annoying to me. It takes away from my immersion. And Stalker 2 that I streamed is kind of the extreme version of that. Like, it just doesn't look good. I'm not saying it's unplayable, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't run well. And I'm not really sure why, because again, the sports sims, they weren't great, but they were definitely playable. Whereas Stalker 2, I wouldn't consider it playable. So I don't know what the difference was there. Maybe because it's a newer game. I don't know. But what I do know is I would not recommend it. One other game that I tried out though was Fortnite. And I thought this would be interesting because obviously Fortnite is entirely online. I'm no expert, so maybe there are offline modes, but I'm pretty sure you need an internet connection to play the game. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how would this game run on the cloud streaming service. And it ran pretty well. I would say this was the best gaming experience of any of the games I tried out on the cloud streaming service. I can't remember having really any interruptions in terms of frame rate. Like, it was very smooth. And obviously for a game like Fortnite, that's very important. And maybe there was a minor drop here and there, but it really wasn't bad. The graphics obviously were where it didn't stack up quite as well. But honestly, it wasn't as fuzzy as some of the other games. Again, it reminded me of the Switch version of Fortnite, which I played back in the day. I don't know if it's gotten better. It's literally been 5 years since I've played that game on the Switch. But that game, I think, was at 30 frames. It would drop frames very often. Graphically, it was very muddy. I would honestly say that the Xbox cloud streaming version of Fortnite is better than the Switch version. At least for me, it was a better experience than the Switch version, which is pretty crazy to say, right? At least in one experience, the Xbox cloud streaming service is competitive with the most popular console out there right now. That's pretty impressive. Side note on Fortnite, what the hell has that game turned into? Again, I haven't played it in literally half a decade, but what is going on in that thing? Remember when you could just play Fortnite and that was it? Now you can do like Fall Guys mode. I clicked on that and it was like one of those old like Roblox obbies, if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Back in the day, I used to play those to death. But you're a Fall Guy. I don't know. It was very confusing. And then I played this Lego mini game where I was like helping Santa deliver presents. I have no idea what's going on in Fortnite anymore. It makes me feel old because it's still like the most popular game on Earth, and it has entirely passed me by, this modern version of Fortnite. I have no idea what is ever going on that app. Anyways, can't wait till 2050 when we have Fortnite Mario and Fortnite Zelda and Fortnite Halo, and we're just playing all of our games out of the Fortnite client. Sounds great. Can't wait for the future. Crazy stuff. What is going on in Fortnite? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Sorry. But, actual gameplay aside, the experience was really good. It was smooth. And again, it wasn't the best looking, but it wasn't the worst looking either. Like, I could see what was going on, and I could even kind of see people in the distance or like bullets passing me by, which obviously in Fortnite is huge. You got to know when someone's walking towards you and shooting at you or whatever. I could see those details. Not well, but I could see them. And that's really impressive to me for cloud gaming. So in total, I played a few games. I showed you the results. Do I think Xbox cloud gaming is in a good place in 2024? I mean, not really. It obviously depends on the game. I mean, obviously, number one, it depends on your internet connection. If you have good internet, you'll probably find that these cloud streamed games are playable. It's not going to be the best experience in the world, but it'll be playable. If you have bad internet, just don't even try. It's not worth it. It's not going to work good. We're not there yet in terms of cloud gaming as a technology, unfortunately. I asked at the beginning, would it be worth it to buy Game Pass solely to play cloud streamed games? And the answer to that is an unequivocal no. Even if you have the best internet on earth, this is not worth paying whatever it is, $10, $15. Price changes all the time, a month for Game Pass just to play cloud stream games. That is not worth it. But if you have an Xbox and you use Game Pass on the physical Xbox a lot, it's not a bad throw-in feature to have. Again, I came home for Thanksgiving. I didn't want to lug my Xbox home for 1 week, so I just booted up my computer and I could play Madden or Fortnite, even though I definitely am not playing Fortnite. That game has passed me by. But I could play these games in a pretty playable state while my Xbox was sitting back in Pittsburgh. I wonder if it'll ever get to a place where it's playable for all people, and for people with really good internet connections, if it's on par with console gaming natively. I just don't know if we're ever going to get to that point. I mean, Microsoft touts cloud gaming as if it's a real competitive experience for gaming, and it's just not. I mean, they talk about, well, if you have an Amazon Fire Stick, that's an Xbox, or if you have a phone, that's an Xbox, or if you have a laptop, that's an Xbox. It's not an Xbox. An Xbox is an Xbox. None of those other things are an Xbox if you're expecting them to cloud stream games and have a really good experience. You can have a fine experience, but you're not going to have a really good experience. You're not going to have a Series X level experience. Not even close. Again, Maybe you'll have a Nintendo Switch experience, depending on the game and depending on your internet, but you're not going to have anywhere close to that top-of-the-line $500 hardware experience. And for how much Microsoft is trying to charge for Game Pass, obviously it's not worth it to just cloud stream on it, which is what they seem to want people to do, or are kind of selling the service to people as, hey, even if you don't have an Xbox, you can still play our games with cloud streaming. No, that's not an option. Don't believe them when they say that's an option. We're not there yet. Again, maybe in 5 years, maybe when the next Xbox comes out, we'll be at that point. We're not there right now. Honestly, we're not even close. So in summation, my final verdict, cloud gaming is cool, and it's a fun experience to have as an addition to your Xbox natively, but it cannot replace your Xbox. Not even close. Well, that's all I've got for today. I thought it'd be a fun little experiment to game on the cloud and see if it's anywhere near playable, and honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. So shout out to Microsoft for that. I'm taking back my shout out though, because that Flight Simulator 2024 launch was a disaster. I didn't get to play the damn game on launch day. Like, that's why I freaking pay for Game Pass, man. For day one games on Game Pass. I didn't get that. With Flight Simulator. I'm not mad. Not bad. But seriously, tell me down below, how do you feel about cloud gaming? Have you tried Microsoft's cloud gaming service? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think the future of gaming is on the cloud? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for the next one, and I'll see you guys next time.